From the jungles of India, the great Kali has shocked the world. Now, the dead man faces his gravest challenge yet.
There will be no escape! And ironically, for you, Undertaker, escape is the only way to win.
Will a new phenom emerge?
Welcome, loyal subjects, to this much royal podcast of wrestling discussion.
Yes, and I've got a big cheesy grin on my face while wearing the most overly sparkly gown I could get, big white teeth, and waving my hand to all the peasants.
I also have a personal town crier detailing all the reasons why I'm so great and I am royalty, and it goes on forever and never ever shuts up. Welcome everybody to Madhog and Ivar Wrestling Podcast, which is not dead yet.
Yes, you would think it would have been knocked out for the count somewhere, but nope, it's here still somewhere.
It's here. It has its purpose, and its purpose, I've just decided, is reviewing pay-per-views, wrestling pay-per-views. Specifically, wrestling pay-per-views from the mid-2000s, which is an era of wrestling that Devar was not present for. So this will be a great journey for him, specifically.
More like a pit stop, really, but...
Well, that depends if we actually continue from this point. Anyway, story time. Story time, folks.
Yes.
About 6 months ago, I came up with the idea of starting to review wrestling pay-per-views, because it just so happens that I have an inordinate amount of WWE DVDs in my collection. I don't know what to do with them, but I just so happen to have them. And, as it were, I have a lot of pay-per-views that are specifically from the stretch of time in between 2005 and 2008-ish. Lots of them.
Oh dear.
Because that was the period in which I was mostly active as a WWE fan back in the day. For better, but mostly for worse. It was a turmoiled time, to say the very least. It was pretty much defined by the untimely passing of both Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, changing the very direction that professional wrestling, professional mainstream wrestling, WWE specifically, would go in the next few years. They would officially switch to PG rating in 2008. They pretty much had the government breathing on their neck for a huge chunk of 2007, following the Chris Benoit debacle. But we are not in 2007 yet, because our journey tonight takes us to a hot midsummer dream in 2006. If you will. I don't know why I said dream. More like a nightmare, a waking nightmare for a variety of reasons. But here we go. So 6 months ago I decided, Devar, you and me, we are going to review the Great American Bash 2006, which took place in July. the reason why I wanted us to review this is because I remember it as one of the more bizarre, baffling, and outright mediocre pay-per-views of its period, which is most notable for the debut of a very specific kind of gimmick match that you might have heard of as of late.
Yes.
That's right, it was the debut of the Punjabi Prison Match. The Great American Bash 2006 would go down in history, my friend. But not for the reasons it wanted to.
Yeah,
Imagine my surprise when not only a Punjabi Prison Match for a 2017 pay-per-view would be announced, but it would also take place in a pay-per-view in the month of July. Wouldn't you know it? It is the same month the Great American Bash took place back in the day, and it's the same month the Punjabi Prison debuted. So, in honor of that, we have decided now that it's somewhat topical to record this podcast. Even though it was my idea to do so for a long time. And that is the end of story time. Hope you enjoyed it.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Frankly, I'm just still so befuddled by the fact that they thought bringing this gimmick back was a good idea, especially since what the first one was like. Which we will discuss in a few.
In due time.
But first, here's a little bit of a backstory. Now, despite being originally a WCW pay-per-view, the WWE iteration of the Great American Bash started off as a SmackDown brand exclusive pay-per-view back in 2004. So this one is the third edition. Notably, the previous two editions were mostly remembered for the very, very controversial burying of the Muhammad Hassan gimmick, which was already a controversial gimmick to begin with, which happened in 2005.
Yeah.
And that is something that I have still vivid memories of. My gosh. And 1 year prior to that, The Undertaker killed Paul Bearer by covering him in concrete.
Yep, that happened.
So, this pay-per-view has a great track record. Let's keep it going, I say.
Yes, let's keep it going. Wherever it decides to go.
Right? It took place on July 23rd of 2006 at the Conseco Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, Indiana, and was a SmackDown brand exclusive event. It drew an attendance of 9,750 people and a pay-per-view buy rate of 232,000.
That's a lot of people.
That is pretty much an average drawing for a B pay-per-view, considering the highest buy rate for SummerSlam used to be around 600,000. So this is pretty decent for a exclusive brand pay-per-view about 1 month before SummerSlam. The theme song was Lonely Train by Blackstone Cherry. It's important to point that out.
Yes, it is very important to point that out because I actually forgot what it sounded like instantly after hearing it.
Yes, it is a pretty generic, somewhat punk rock, metal rock, I have no idea rock song of the time. Right, so with all of this important backstory covered, here's how this review is going to go down. We shall cover this event, this show, match by match, segment by segment. This is a pretty free-form kind of review. I have a couple of notes. Devar has his mental notes.
Yeah, just feelings, really. I just want to say that I'm not really a technical person when it comes to describing wrestling, so I just go with what I feel, really, overall, rather than getting in the nitty-gritty details, if that makes sense.
So essentially it is mostly freeform. We shall not be doing a play-by-play commentary, as it were, with detailed minutiae about every single match. We will mostly be focused on how the match fared in general and some notable spots in between.
Yeah, and anything of interest that we want to point out, mainly.
Welcome to the land of opportunity. Welcome to the Great American Bash.
Right. So Epic Narrator Guy welcomes us to the Great American Bash. The land of opportunity, as the beginning video package says, and I am immediately wanting to run away because the land of opportunity, hashtag land of opportunity, is a catchphrase that gets thrown around a lot in today's iteration of SmackDown as well.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
Yeah, can I just say one thing?
What?
I pressed the skip button as soon as he said that.
Yes, well, okay, the initial video package introduced us to what are basically the two main feuds of tonight's show, which are the epic rematch between The Undertaker and the Great Khali in the aforementioned Punjabi Prison Match, as well as the actual main event, which is the then worst world champion ever crowned Rey Mysterio defending against King Booker, which is Booker T with a king gimmick that inexplicably against all odds works out pretty well for him.
Yeah, which is very weird, because it shouldn't work on paper, but yet it did somehow.
Yes, well, King Booker was Broken Matt before Broken Matt was Broken Matt. That's something I said. As soon as the show starts, I noticed immediately that the commentary, the style of commentary, was a lot different back then. Much less heavily scripted and much more energetic. Michael Cole and JBL for the commentating team on SmackDown.
I always remember Michael Cole being a lot more decent as a commentator, so hearing complaints about him in modern WWE kind of confuses me somewhat.
Well, it's because, like I said, nowadays it is much more controlled, heavily scripted, and that inevitably causes the likes of Michael Cole and his other 3 million co-commentator partners to sound a lot less involved in the action. Back then, you could say anything to Michael Cole except that he was not involved. To be fair, this back and forth, very energetic commentary between Michael Cole and JBL gets annoying pretty fast, I have to say. And before long, it devolves completely into JBL saying, "That's not fair, Michael!" And Michael responding, "Well, it's gonna happen anyway."
It's not fair! It's fair! No, it's not fair! This is America! It's not fair!
Yes, so that summarizes this night perfectly. It's not fair, but it's happening anyway. You bought this pay-per-view. Right then. Fun fact, this was the very first pay-per-view in which JBL debuted as a color commentator. He had only recently retired from action, a momentary retirement, by the way. He would still have a brief stint in between 2008 and 2009, right after he lost to Rey Mysterio and then also to Bobby Lashley. More on that later. So this is his first pay-per-view as a color commentator, and I have to say, overall, he does a great job, especially when King Booker is concerned.
Oh yeah.
That only works as a testament of how much more freeform the commentary was back then, and better. The wrestling, on the other hand...
the wrestling.
Yes, like I said, this was a weird time for the company, a difficult time. They did not have any real competition. TNA does not count. It never counted, unfortunately.
Yeah, sadly no.
So they never felt any urge to improve the quality of the performances of the wrestling. The roster on SmackDown was a bit depleted at the time, and over the course of this event, it will most definitely show in the worst possible way.
Yeah, spread thin, in other words.
You think today's roster is thin? No, compared to this, it's not. So the first match of the night has the then WWE Tag Team Champions Paul London and the Brian Kendrick, without the D. It was just Brian Kendrick at the time, defending against the Pitbulls, the team of Jamie Noble and Kid Cash. I'm going to assume you know who all of these people are except Kid Cash.
Kid Cash and Paul London, namely. I know Jamie Noble. Jamie Noble was a cruiserweight champion for a long while when he entered the fray of the WWE. And Brian Kendrick, I know as a goofball. So it was nice to see him in with a title on his shoulder because I don't know, I really liked that goofball when he came in.
I have to say, he looked really young back then. He looks like a child. Some early teenage kid just wandered into the ring and his parents are looking for him.
Oh yeah, I get what you mean. He definitely looked way younger than he does. I mean, compared to today, where he has that really nice goatee on him.
No, here's the thing. Even with the goatee and the inevitable wrinkles of age, he still looks like a child cosplaying as an adult. Cosplaying as Gary Oldman, I guess.
Yes, Paul London and Kid Cash, I do not know very much.
Okay, so Paul London made his name known in 2004. When he became tag team champion for the first time, defeating the Dudley Boys.
Right.
He was champion with...
Billy Kidman?
He was champion with Billy Kidman, yes.
Good, I at least remembered him.
Yes, they broke up, they had a feud, then nothing of particular note. And then, all of a sudden, he teams up with the Brian Kendrick, thank you very much, and they become possibly the most successful tag team on SmackDown's history, as they held the tag team belts for almost an entire year before losing them to a tag team known as Deuce and Domino.
Oh.
They were a 1950s Fonzie-like throwback. It's not good. It's not good. Incidentally, one of the guys in the Deuce and Domino tag team was the cameraman who was supposed to catch The Undertaker during his classic bout against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25.
Yeah, I remember hearing that story actually myself.
And could not. So they won the straps from the M&M, Mercury, Nitro, and Melina. Which is to say, Joey Mercury, Johnny Nitro, and Melina. You might know Melina because she had a semi-successful career as a woman wrestler in WWE before being let go for having the worst behavior possible. And of course, Joey Mercury, which had not much of a career at all once he was separated from Johnny Nitro. Now, Johnny Nitro, you might know him better as John Morrison, and you might know him even betterer as Johnny Mundo.
Yes, from Lucha Underground.
Johnny Mundo, which is his current name, is charisma-made person. Also, he's got abs for days, and honestly, never mind CM Punk. The WWE letting go of John Morrison was preposterous. Their worst decision by far. The guy is gold. He is a phenomenal athlete, a phenomenal charisma, one of the best heels ever. I can sit here and sing the lauds of Johnny Mundo all night, but he's not even featured in this pay-per-view at this point in time. He's actually on Raw, being Intercontinental Champion with Melina, and then feuding with a returning Jeff Hardy, just so you know.
Yes, okay, that's good to know.
So, what did you think of this tag team bout?
It was alright, I guess. I mean, it's just a classic, two high-flying duo taking on rough and tough.
Yes,
yeah.
it is a classic dynamic. Although I have to say, the High Flyers uncharacteristically dominated the vast majority of this match.
Yeah, that's just kind of weird to watch, really, because despite the fact they try to make Noble and Cash look like, look like as if they're dominating the match at one point, it definitely feels like as if Kendrick and London had most of the match in the bag.
Yes, I have to say, they are really good. They are fast-paced, athletic. They don't have much in the way of charisma, but their in-ring work makes up for it.
Yeah,
the crowd was mostly behind them, except for that one guy. There's always one. That one guy was cheering for the Pitbulls. No, boo, I don't like you, baby faces. And when the Pitbulls get the upper hand, he's all like, yeah. You could hear him throughout the match. It was quite amusing.
I always find those sort of people amusing who basically go against the grain of what the WWE wants you to be cheering for.
Yeah. The biggest mistake the WWE has made was to encourage this sort of behavior. It's biting them in the neck.
Yeah.
So here's a couple of interesting signs that I spotted with the art camera. One said, if Benoit shows up, we riot, which I could not understand.
No, I could not understand either.
I mean, it's 2006, and at the time Benoit was sidelined with an injury. So, maybe that one guy just did not like Benoit. I don't know.
Yes, it's probably that.
Another much more interesting and topical sign said, tonight, Undertaker vs. Khali, Part 2. You poor bastard. Oh, gosh.
Oh, sod.
Oh, no. Okay, so what were your favorite moments in this match? Because it was a mighty decent match, after all.
I always liked the moments in these sort of matches where the High Flyers just kind of just do their thing, jumping around everywhere.
It was a pretty fast-paced match because the High Flyers dominated for most of it, which is, again, very uncharacteristic of WWE style. But anyway, perhaps my two favorite spots of the match were that killer dropkick that Jamie Noble did to Paul London's chest while he was skinning the cat.
Yeah, that looked like it really hurt.
It also got the crowd pretty well involved. They were booing like crazy, except for that one guy who was going, yeah.
Yeah, going like, yeah, like
you're so good. That was so good. Yeah, and everyone else was boo. Also, him and Kid Cash did a double chop on said Paul London's chest, which was very loud and nice.
There's probably one thing I liked about the match overall is that Noble and Cash, they actually did look very ruthless. It definitely felt like as if, like, from just the sounds alone, they felt like a very powerful team once they actually got their hands on one of them. Yes. To try and dominate them.
Honestly, they don't have the sizes to be ground and pound nasty guys because...
Oh, no.
Come to think of it, everybody in this tag team match was a cruiserweight. Which is interesting and also problematic for a reason that I will bring up later on, when the actual cruiserweight champion bafflingly shows up.
I will say this, that Jamie Noble was, even when he entered the WWE with, as I would say, entered the fray of the WWE with, becoming cruiserweight champion, he was always touted as being like this ruthless cruiserweight that basically just pounded every cruiserweight he could get his hands on.
I love that, and it works if he's fighting other cruiserweights.
Yes.
However, this is the tag team division, and having cruiserweight tag teams is the exception, not the rule. But anyway, they were not very believable because, again, the High Flyers dominated most of it. This was a decent, fast-paced bout to get the crowd into the show. A decent, mighty decent way to start off your pay-per-view. Hopefully the rest of the night can deliver as well. Hopefully.
You say that like as if we're watching it right now.
Yes, well, I'm trying to be funny here.
I can see that.
Do it later tonight! This Punjabi Prison Match is yours!
No!
You can do it later! Why do we have to wait? Just wait!
First backstage segment of the night, we have the Great Khali and Daivari, which was known for being the former Muhammad Hassan's associate, and also, yeah, briefly he was also Kurt Angle's manager in 2005.
Huh.
But
Okay.
anyway, so Daivari is now the Great Khali's manager. He was the one who, in kayfabe, brought him in the company. So we have this, no doubt, highly intellectual exchange in between Daivari begging the Great Khali not to do anything irrational, and the Great Khali just Tasmanian devil.
Tasmanian devil.
Making fun of a language that we do not understand. That's very mature.
I mean, the worst we could do is probably say that Great Khali sounds like Scooby-Doo if he was trying to do Tasmanian devil.
No, he sounds like the Tasmanian devil if Mel Blanc's line had been slowed down, the pitch has been lowered massively. Lots of shouting and lots of making noises with your mouth, which is kind of funny. So Daivari is begging Khali not to call out the Undertaker because his moment is yet not come. To which Khali responds, "The Undertaker has besmirched my honor. I demand satisfaction now." Or at least I'm assuming he's saying that. You know, for all we know, he might just saying out loud his grocery list.
Yeah,
and we could not know it because he's speaking Punjab.
Get me my cappuccino!
And then Jinder Mahal, 11 years prior, just pops in and says, "He's speaking the language of his people, Punjabi." No, it doesn't happen, but it might just happen now that the Great Khali has returned.
Yeah, which is weird, to say the least.
My gosh, they're trying so hard to conquer the Indian market, aren't they? First of all, the Great Khali actually answers that by grabbing Daivari and hoisting him up like Rafiki does with baby Simba.
Yes.
It was actually pretty funny. Also, the camera is put at a very noticeable Dutch angle to emphasize how large Khali is, because he's totally not huge enough already.
Yeah, we've got to basically, emphasize how big the guy is.
I like to think Arn Swoggle was actually holding the camera from that angle.
Speaking of which...
Next up, we have Holla Holla, Playa Playa, Holla
Yeah.
Holla Holla.
Good old Teddy Long, at the time SmackDown's general manager.
For a
walks in.
ridiculously long time. Okay, so he walks in and
Changes the tempo.
and then Teddy comes in and he changes the tempo, ordering everybody to be in a tag team match.
Yeah, or in this case, Teddy Long just comes out to basically make a very grieving announcement.
It was a really disappointing announcement, especially
Very
for
weird.
everybody attending there.
It was a very weird announcement, if you ask me.
Yes, well, hopefully weirdness is not going to be tonight's leitmotif.
Yeah, hopefully that won't be the case. Things couldn't possibly get any weirder.
The next match we are having is Finlay defending the WWE United States Championship against William Regal. Now, the match we were supposed to be having, which was advertised to happen on this very same night, was a triple threat match involving Champion Finlay, William Regal, and the hot up-and-comer, then hot up-and-comer Bobby Lashley.
I thought with the way everyone was talking that basically it was just supposed to be Finlay versus Lashley, not a triple threat match.
It
Unless I
was supposed to
skipped
be a triple threat match. It was totally supposed to be a triple threat match.
Right.
Immediately after Judgment Day 2006, a few months before this, JBL, who very unsuccessfully tried to win the World Championship from Rey Mysterio,
Yeah.
proceeded to lose his United States belt against Bobby Lashley, which again was the hot up-and-comer. A few weeks later, Bobby Lashley would lose, thanks to shenanigans, his belt against Fit Finlay. It is important to note that both William Regal and Finlay are actually serving under King Booker as his royal court. So they are allies, and they're both heels. The scheduled match, like I said, was supposed to be a triple threat match, but here's what happens.
Bobby Lashley was found to have elevated enzymes in the liver.
What?
Therefore, Mr. Lashley will not compete here tonight.
General Manager Theodore Long announced that Bobby Lashley, who was previously scheduled to be in the match, could not compete due to elevate enzymes in his liver.
The most weirdest thing to ever be announced to take someone out of the match for.
Michael Cole on commentary tells us that this was actually announced already on the website of the company a few days before this pay-per-view. And yet, this match was still advertised as a triple threat, up until they decided to change it at the very last minute, or at least to announce the change at the very last minute, right before the match started. Now, Bobby Lashley was booked at the time to be a dominant muscle machine, essentially. He's been called Black Lesnar, ironically. So, since Bobby Lashley was taken out of the equation, that left the two super buddies, the two super friends, fellow courtsmen, Fit Finlay and William Regal, to duke it out against each other for the title. It's a last-minute announced heel versus heel title match. The crowd is dead.
Yeah, and during the whole announcement, and Bobby Lashley comes out, and he's all like, "Please, Teddy Long, please let me be in this match."
I want to be in this match, Teddy Long.
Oh gosh, back then he was dead in the promos. We all have to start somewhere, but
yes, like Rocky Maivia, for example.
But I'm still surprised, even with such deadpan delivery of his, of what he's saying. Everyone's still behind him.
Yeah, he was actually pretty over. He was also pushed to the moon and back all throughout the first part of 2007. When he was sent to ECW and be ECW champion and feuded against Vince McMahon, and it's a whole torpid, idiotic story that ultimately leads towards nothing, because he would still be out of the company after being sidelined with an injury.
Yeah. I'm also thankful that these days, apparently, Lashley on the indie circuit is apparently improved a lot in both his promo style and wrestling, but
I don't know if Global Force Wrestling counts as proper indie, but yes, I know what you mean. He needed a lot of growth. At the time, he was pretty green, both in the ring and at the microphone. But still, he had great potential. He had everything, Michael! He has the physique. He has everything, Michael!
He has the physique, and he has everything, Michael!
He looks like a champion. He just needs to start acting like one. And also, he needs to get rid of his lisp. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, which
still, it was pretty over, and you can tell people were very unhappy of his exclusion, especially for reasons so baffling and vague, because I actually looked this up.
I wasn't too bothered because it sounded like such a fake reason.
No, it was true.
Really?
It was, why would you remove one of your hottest up-and-coming stars from a match in which he is very much the sheer-down babyface that would only leave us with two heels otherwise, if not for what was thought at the time to be a good reason. The way they did it was completely dishonest, but still, So every once in a while in the sports world, you have random tests to check out the state of your enzymes, of your cells, your blood cells and whatnot in your liver. Elevated enzymes in the liver might or might not be associated with damaging cells or tissues or liver-based diseases, or just being, like in this case, a scare. Personally, I think he had too much to drink. That might just be the cause, and bad timing too, because he will be in action the very next week, I believe. He did not miss a show. It is still weird and bizarre.
To me, the first time I heard this sounded like such a fake reason to me, like as if it was made for a storyline for something, but nope.
It is all true. Honestly, it is too befuddling not to be a reality. So, again, this leaves us with Finlay defending his title against William Regal in their much anticipated sequel to their original matchup 10 years ago in '96.
That's interesting to know.
Interestingly, the announcers actually bring this up during the match, trying to give this match, with no build-up and no heat whatsoever, some sort of gravitas. They tried back then.
That's good to know that it tried, but it doesn't change the fact that it's just a match at the last minute. They're just throwing you up and them telling you enjoy it, and it's like, but why?
Well, to be fair, this one, compared to their original matchup in '96, is a 6-star rating classic.
I mean, we got Regal and Finlay, who are two well-decorated wrestlers at the time, and even today,
Yes.
And they were seen as, some of the most talented people in the world of wrestling at that point.
Very underrated athletes. I think Fit Finlay was already in his 50s during this.
He still chugs on like a steam train.
My name is Finlay, and I love to fight.
Such a classic, that one.
Okay, so his personality and gimmick, if you will, or lack thereof, has always been the same since he was young. The only difference is that now in WWE they have accentuated his Irishness. So he comes into the ring with a shillelagh, he has a big old clover leaf in his outfit, he has a leprechaun living under the ring for no reason.
Which is Hornswoggle, everybody.
Well, at the time he did not yet have a name. He was referred to as Troll, Leprechaun, and the Little Bastard. The Little Bastard was actually his official name at the time.
Right. That's good to know, because I only known him as Hornswoggle.
Might as well call him Hornswoggle. I have to say, his interaction with Regal throughout the match was probably the most entertaining thing about it.
It's like watching a cartoon with Regal and...
Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting leprechauns. And then the leprechaun just pops out from under the ring, right behind him. Regal turns and he reacts like
some sort of horror movie villain just
like,
came
ah!
And then
starts running. It's so funny. It is very funny. It is also funny when Hornswoggle just grabs his leg the first time, and then he steals his boot, which becomes a contusion weapon used later by Finlay to win the match. This comedy act in between Finlay and Hornswoggle, with Hornswoggle being the rambunctious troll that he is, and Finlay being so super serious. He loves to fight. Finlay, I'm Irish, and Bobby Lashley has this yellow streak on his back. I'm Finlay and I like to fight. I have a shillelagh to prove it. My terrible imitation. They did the best they could given the cards they were dealt with, but the fact is they are supposed to be allies working under the same king, I want to say, so you cannot actually be invested in this match because of that. And you'd think that after what happens in the finish of this match, like I said, Finlay uses the boot to give William Regal the boot to the head. A boot to the head, as it were. But no, nothing comes out of it. They seem to be ready to feud against each other, but King Booker pacifies them.
Yeah.
So this is really too bad for Lashley, which was pretty hot to the touch in spite of his shortcomings. Come to think of it, he was the modern-day Ahmed Johnson, wasn't he?
That's true.
He has an explosive style that does not really make him good, he is green as all heck, and you can barely understand him when he speaks.
Oh dear.
Well, not quite as bad as Ahmed, but keep the dream alive, Bobby.
One thing I did find funny was the exchange between Finley and Hornswoggle when after he won the match and he's being all serious, like going like, "Yes, I won the belt," and suddenly Hornswoggle comes out, grabs the belt, runs around, and then Finley's like, no, get him back into the ring and kicks him into the...
Okay, back in the day, they actually knew how to use Hornswoggle for great comedic effect. For example, a really, really cool spot at the next WrestleMania pay-per-view, the third ever Money in the Bank ladder match.
Yeah.
Hornswoggle performs a frog splash from atop a mini ladder. Offensive midget wrestling jokes done right, I guess.
Well, yeah. Let's forget about DX's courtroom incident involving
Let
short
us
people.
forget the fact that he retired the cruiserweight belt and division entirely.
I don't know who was worse, Hornswoggle for retiring the belt, or Gilbert for holding the belt for such a long period.
Hornswoggle. It was indubitably Hornswoggle. Besides, that was the light heavyweight belt. It was a completely different looking belt also.
Yeah, completely different looking belt, but still served the same purpose to me.
I mean, at first it was the light heavyweight belt, then it was retired, then the cruiserweight belt was introduced as a SmackDown exclusive,
Yeah.
and then it was retired in the worst possible way, and then we have a cruiserweight belt and division again today, and it's terrible! Hooray!
It all comes full circle.
Right, so this was the United States Championship match between the two best friends, buddies, fellow courtsmen, and a troll somehow involved. Something that I picked up from JBL during this match.
Yeah.
JBL implied the little troll might have parents. Foreshadowing for 2007.
No.
oh, yes! Oh, no, wait. Is kayfabe dead at the time?
Yeah, we have to go on without it.
Right, so, and from that moment of unexpected hilarity, this next segment...
One of Eddie's last dreams was to regain the world championship. So in a sense, you're living Eddie's dream. Tonight, I'm here to make sure that dreams do come true.
Yes, what was the next segment after that?
Chavo Guerrero and Rey Mysterio name-dropping Eddie Guerrero for the bajillionth time. They're doing it for Eddie. Rey Mysterio is champion because of Eddie from up above, and Chavo is going to make sure that tonight's dreams do come true, which is pretty much the most telegraphed heel turn in history.
Yes.
And it's just pretty bad, and it summarizes in about 30 seconds, or however long this segment was, why Rey Mysterio's title reign was so terrible. Well, that, and also he lost to everybody.
They booked him wrong. I have to admit, I was quite confused by fans' reaction being cheers.
Yes,
considering that
they fell for it, hook, line, and sinker at the time.
Even back then, I would have thought that was a bit, well, emotional blackmailing to make you cheer for the guy.
Honestly, wrestling fans were a lot more gullible back then, I think. There were a lot more children too in wrestling audiences, even in pay-per-views. Which is interesting because at the time the product was not yet PG rated and blood does flow a lot.
Yeah, we'll get to that, though.
So we have this horrible segment. Right?
Yes. To the next match.
Okay, so,
Yes, we just finished talking about the belt itself, actually, just earlier.
So, the third match of the night, WWE Cruiserweight Champion defends. I mean, he does not. He just fights Matt Hardy, whom actually used to be, I think, the first Cruiserweight Champion, back when he was actually considered a Cruiserweight, inexplicably.
Yeah, I didn't get that either, because I thought he looked a bit too big.
Speaking of which, our current champion, Gregory Helms, best known for the Hurricane.
Yes, best thing he's ever been.
It's sad, really. Weighs in at 215 pounds. Keep in mind, currently the limit for cruiserweights, the weight limit for cruiserweights is 205. So the cruiserweight champion is actually a heavyweight, and the world heavyweight champion weighs 170 pounds. I just want you to think about that. It's almost like the cruiserweight belt has no meaning whatsoever at this point.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we had 4 able-bodied cruiserweights competing for the tag team divisions earlier on to exclaim this point. This is a nothing match, by the way. It's a last-minute put-together match. Do you want to know why?
Please tell me. I would like to know, because it didn't seem like there was anything going into this match or going out of it.
And there still isn't. The commentators do not bother to mention this, but the actual match we were supposed to watch was Gregory Helms defending the Cruiserweight strap against Super Crazy. But the match was scrapped because Super Crazy was taken out of the show. And the reason why he was taken out of the show is because they found elevated enzymes in his liver.
Elevated enzymes? Again?
Again, elevated enzymes in his liver. They did not even bother to actually have Teddy Long come out and announce it a second time. I'm afraid I have some bad news. Super Crazy has been found with elevated enzymes in his liver and will not be able to compete tonight. I would love him to do that for every match tonight, because we will need him a few more times. So this is happening, and the commentators do not even bother to point out that this is the match that was supposed to happen. That should tell you how much that belt is worthless at this point.
Jeez Louise.
So they wrestle for a bit.
Well, there's a little bit of showboating from Matt to basically, take the mickey out of, hey, you're the Hurricane.
And then Gregory Helms does the V1 thing that he used to do when it was not interesting. It was not broken at the time, after all.
And then the match ends with a roll-up
holding up the tights. Yes, after Matt just fell badly from the top rope. So I guess Matt Hardy has been deleted and rendered obsolete by the Hurricane.
Yeah, by Gregory Helms being a heel.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a nothing match.
The most interesting thing about it was the match that we did not get.
Yes,
because of elevated enzymes in livers. 2 matches so far. 2 matches have been denied to us. 2 in a row, in fact, have been denied to us because of enzymes.
The next segment, then.
The next segment. Now, this is a bit more interesting.
You looking for me?
Oh! Big Show! The ECW champion! Big Show ambushing the Undertaker!
So, the Great Khali is strutting. He is doing something with his legs.
And he's doing something with his mouth, too.
I mean, he's technically walking, but as a person who suffers of gigantism, he does the best he can. I have to say, the first time he showed up, I thought he was Giant Gonzalez, somehow younger. Is Indian Gonzalez. I make fun of him, but I actually like the Great Khali a lot. He's actually a stand-up guy. He's working for the company in order to pay for his village back in India. He ended up founding his own wrestling company in India, and he became one of the biggest stars that country had to offer. He easily fills up stadiums with 60,000 people.
Wow.
Yes, so you can see why the company really wants that Indian market. So the Great Khali is strutting down the hallway, yelling Punjabi gibberish, while Daivari just says, "Come on, Khali, don't do that, come on, man.
We're coming up soon, the match, please, listen to me."
I like this moment in which Daivari stops, and then the Undertaker's shadow literally overshadows him, and then he turns just to see Taker grab him and throw him somewhere.
You've been looking for me, boy.
So uncharacteristically, the Undertaker shows up before his 5 years long entrance. It seems like they're about to brawl. Until, out of nowhere, ECW World Champion The Big Show shows up with a well-planned ambush.
But it looks comical to me when he just goes like, "Rrr!" Just jumps in and goes like, "Rrr, rrr."
Yes. If you're like me,
yes,
and you're watching this show for the first time, you'd think they are setting up a very obvious handicap for Taker to overcome against his much bigger, much more threatening opposition. You would be wrong. You will be so wrong! So tragically wrong! Okay, so, you know what? We might as well address this now. We were supposed to have the Great Khali fighting The Undertaker in the first ever Punjabi Prison Match.
Yes, stressing the supposed to.
It seems like it's a recurring theme tonight, wouldn't you agree? We were supposed to have Lashley in a match for the US title, we did not. We were supposed to have a Cruiserweight title belt defense, we did not, and it was not even mentioned. We were supposed to have the somewhat anticipated rematch between Taker and Khali in that also flaunted structure of hell made of bamboo, which is the Punjabi prison. And we'll get to that freaking disaster gimmick. But we do not exactly end up getting that. Would you like to know why? Just throw a random guess. You will never guess the reason why Khali is not competing in that match tonight. Do you want to know why?
This is not because of elevated enzymes again, is it?
They found elevated enzymes in his liver!
Again!
Enzymes! Enzymes! The higher power removes his mask. It's enzymes, Austin! It was enzymes all along, Austin! Enzymes! The Evolution hosts up Randy Orton after he won the title, but Triple Enzymes thumbs down, so they turn on him. The liver break enzymes, Shawn Michaels super kicks Marty Jannetty through the glass. I could go on. Enzymes.
Kurt Angle grabs Shane McMahon and chucks him through a glass of enzymes.
Enzymes.
You are looking at the most dominant force in the WWE.
Undertaker is nearly helpless. You think you're pretty damn smart, don't you? Getting Big Show to do your dirty work for you. Now tonight, in your Punjabi prison match, there's only going to be one man that's going to meet the Undertaker.
The great
You! Big Show! Yeah, you!
He's didn't come here to be stuck in a stinking Punjabi prison.
Guess what? Big Show's going to get an education.
Not fair.
Undertaker doesn't know about this matchup either.
Fair.
Well, it's going to happen.
You know what the worst part of all this is?
What?
they still played the video package detailing the story behind the two combatants before they actually announced the change right after that.
Yes.
That is a low blow. That is a massive low blow.
That is really dumb.
They have no respect for their fans. They have no respect for the people who bought this pay-per-view. All the 232,000s who just bought this train wreck. We're only at the beginning of the second hour. And already they're all regretting purchasing this. I can guarantee you that. My gosh. So that must have been a pretty disappointing moment. You can hear the audible disappointment from the crowd as that was announced.
Yes, you could actually. It was quite heartbreaking to hear, actually.
It's not fair, Michael! I agree, it's not fair.
Yeah, it's not fair. And yet here's Michael Cole going like, hey, Big Show, did you okay to attack? And he deserves it.
Okay.
No, Michael, no.
Just for the lols, I'll give you a brief recap of their feud so far. The Great Khali showed up in the first SmackDown after WrestleMania 22.
Yeah.
To completely no-sell Undertaker's unprovoked punches, really. He just walked into the ring, he stared down Taker. Taker was all like, okay, I'm going to punch you now. Which Khali does not sell in the slightest, and then Khali proceeds to plant the world's slowest Mongolian chop on Taker's cranium. So they have a match at Judgment Day, in which Khali destroys, basically squashes The Undertaker in 9 minutes, and pins him with 1 foot.
Which no one liked, apparently.
Nobody saw coming and no one liked, and it sure gave Khali a lot of momentum, but considering he can barely walk, surprisingly can climb, surprisingly. Yeah. 1 month later, on the edition of June 30 of SmackDown, Khali challenged Undertaker to a Punjabi Prison Match at the Great Enzymes Bash the following week.
More like the Great American Enzymes.
Taker accepted, and here we are. So, why does the Big Show appear on this event? You know, other than the obvious reason that they needed a replacement for Khali and there literally wasn't anyone else that would make sense. So basically, Khali and Big Show have teamed up against The Undertaker a couple of times in between ECW and the Saturday night's main event. They teamed up because they're both big, they're both giants, and they both don't like Undertaker, I guess. That's all you're going to get.
That's all you get, as far as I know, too.
So, we have this match, this much-anticipated rematch between Undertaker and Khali, which was replaced by the Big Show. So the very first Punjabi Prison Match is contested by 2 white men. That opens up a can of worms in its own right.
Yes, accidentally opens a can of worms that didn't need to be opened.
A can of Punjabi worms, a can of enzymes, if you will.
Punjabi enzymes.
Punjabi enzymes.
Oh gosh, this is getting worse by the time we get through this.
Yes, it's about to get even worse, because the actual match is about to start.
I would like to say before we start ripping this into shreds, I generally do understand what they were going for. It works. I mean, on paper, it sounds like it could work because, you know, it adds an extra layer to a cage match, but with more strategy involved. But
it does not make for good television. It
does
not make for good wrestling. It is too overcomplicated. It is an inherently overbooked match. This is Vince Russo's wet dream. Look at the damn structure as it gets lower down. It is this abomination made of bamboo trees with a smaller cage inside of the bigger cage. And oh gosh, let's get to the rules as Michael Cole, or I should say MAGGLE, explains them to us.
Yeah, Michael, explain the rules, everybody. Oh.
May I have your attention, please? No, too early for that.
We do not have attentions anymore.
The rules are as they follow. There are 2 cages, one inside the other. The 2 competitors starts out inside the smaller cage. There are 4 doors surrounding this small cage with 4 referees controlling them. Periodically, one of the athletes can request one of the doors to be open, and they will stay open for 60 seconds before being closed off, sealed forever. And the only way to win is for either guy to get out of the structure of both structures by ultimately scaling and climbing on the exterior walls, because the exterior walls do not have doors. This does not sound needlessly overcomplicated at all.
No,
does it?
No, it does not at all. I mean,
it also means that both guys have to stall for time until all 4 doors are opened and closed forever. This match lasts for approximately 7 billion years, which means, yes, for once, the match is actually longer than Undertaker's entrance.
I was just going to say, I was just highly unimpressed as the match went on, and especially when the rules were explained, because I just basically, as soon as Michael said all the rules, I was like, this is just a freaking cage match with another cage around it.
Wow, really?
I mean, I was expecting a lot worse.
I don't know, you could put mild Doberman dogs outside.
No, not like that. It's just that, so I was already uninfused that this, hopefully, epic Punjabi prison, escape from the Punjabi prison. It's just a regular cage match. It's just with a different dressing on it and another cage you have to escape.
Yes, to make sure this match goes on forever. And to be honest, it is a real slog to get through this.
There was really only one point that I thought was okay, but everything else just seemed pretty meh. There was really nothing you could take home to write about.
Big Show and Undertaker pummel each other for a bit in the most unenthused way possible, definitely showing that most of this match was very much impromptu.
Yes.
And the only few planned spots are the obvious ones, like Big Show just locking Undertaker inside the smaller cage once they were both outside, right before the last remaining door closes off forever, and just describing this gives me a headache.
There are certain points during the match that feels like takes forever, because both Undertaker and Big Show are like taking ages to do something at particular points of the match.
You know, I really feel bad for Big Show.
Yes, I feel bad for both of them.
Particularly for Big Show, because during this time, he was massive. His ligaments and junctures were starting to crack a little. And yet, he was being overutilized by all 3 brands available at the time, Raw, SmackDown, and ECW. Of which he was the champion, by the way. So he was basically called in to substitute Khali because Khali had elevated enzymes in his liver and could not compete in his match that he supposedly created. Show was basically left to fill in the hole, the rather large hole that he somehow managed to overfill. Weight jokes, so mature. He was knackered for most of this match. Really, he was struggling to keep up the pace as much as he could, to no avail, because this match is inherently a momentum killer.
Yeah, that was pretty bad in itself, really.
There is actually nothing worth pointing out, a spot that's particularly interesting. They blade each other. That's really about it. It does not make the match better.
No.
The Big Show breaks Taker onto the Punjabi-style table, which brings me to an interesting point. And I say it's an interesting point only because the commentators bothered to point this out in a pitiful attempt to sell the danger of this cage. There were supposed to be weapons on that table.
Yeah?
They were never used. Oh, and speaking of which, you know those oh so dangerous spikes?
Oh yeah, those little tiny sticks.
Atop the cages. They also are never used to any capacity. Why would you introduce them as a viable option only for them not to use them? Jacob's bamboo spikes.
Yeah, I have no idea what to say to that other than what the heck.
Okay, so in the final moments of the match, The Undertaker manages to climb the smaller cage, which was sealed off, and then grab onto the exterior wall because it is fairly close to the other one.
Yeah,
and then
Big Show is taking millions of years to climb the first one, while Undertaker was
to
like
be fair,
Gonzalez.
Well, to be fair, the Big Show does look like he's actually having a hard time climbing.
Yeah, I know that. It's just that it looks comical though compared to the Undertaker. They're selling us. You know, look at him, he's like exhausted, and suddenly the Undertaker's like going doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Babyface power. Also, the power of please end this match compelled him.
Yes.
So, the actual finish, is that the Undertaker basically throws himself at the Big Show, which proceeds to open up the flimsily locked up exterior wall to win the match in the most underwhelming way possible. Meanwhile, the Great Khali shows up how much liver enzymes are not affecting him by climbing the cage on the other side of the structure, that is, with no effort whatsoever, seemingly.
Then just shouting, like, over at the Undertaker, like,
this is not over yet! So the Undertaker does the rest in peace sign at him, because this feud is far from over, you guys. While the Big Show actually sells losing this match as if they killed his own mother. Like, he's crying, he's completely in despair, distraught. His knees on the ground, he raises his arms to the heavens above in a position that's not too dissimilar from Willem Dafoe in Platoon.
Yes.
Which is a nice moment. It was actually pretty funny. Apparently, he really wanted to win this match, even though, judging by the beginning of it, he did not want anything to do with it. So, that's that. That's the first ever Punjabi Prison Match.
Quick question. Why does the Undertaker get to win if Big Show's body hit the floor first?
Yes, you see, Big Show's body hit the floor first, but it was not out of the actual borders of the structure. That's how I'm justifying this. I mean, technically, when Big Show hit the floor, he was still inside the cage, even though it was open. The Undertaker was bounced half a meter beyond that point, and that counted as him winning. That is how you could justify that, feasibly?
Yes. I don't know, it's just the rule of you must escape the cage. Technically, the doors have been wide open. That means Big Show escaped the cage. And yet the Undertaker wins because apparently, you know, good guy power of he must win.
Yes. Well, let's look at it this way. It could have been worse. He could have actually fought the Great Khali in that match.
Oh, that would have been so much worse if it ever happened.
Okay, fun fact. The second ever Punjabi Prison Match actually did have the Great Khali inside of it. It took place at No Mercy 2007, when the Great Khali battled Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Oh gosh.
So, in case you were not made aware of this, the Great Khali, under exceptional circumstances, became World Heavyweight Champion in 2007, right around this time.
Okay.
That's a thing that happened.
That
2007 was the year of injury after injury after injury.
Yeah.
Eventually, too many injuries left us with no other choice.
But let's go back in time to Enzymes, the pay-per-view.
The Great Enzymes Bash. The Great American Enzymes or the Enzymes American Bash?
Where the next match, I believe, was a bra and panties match.
Do you want to skip this?
I actually was going to make a joke about that. Going like, on to the next match.
Right, so the following match, if you will allow me to do my impersonation of Tony Schimmel.
Yes,
Tony
go ahead.
Schimmel. The following match is a fatal 4-way bra and panties match. The women involved were Ashley Massaro, Crystal Marshall, Jillian Hall, and Undertaker's wife, Michelle McCool. So the first one who strips one of the other competitors of their clothing wins the match. Incidentally, there was a similar iteration of this at WrestleMania 22 called the Wish Fulfillment match.
I do not want to know.
Good. The women's division nowadays has its problems, but then you go back in time and watch this garbage.
Yeah.
We are much better off.
Yes, even when I was younger, I didn't really get the appeal of a bra and panties match.
Ashley Massaro wins it, and then Jillian Hall, which used to be JBL's assistant, proceeds to do a complete strip for no other reason but fan service. I would like to remind you there are children in this audience.
And on to the next match, or next promo in this case.
Misfits, my guest tonight, Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy, in just a few moments, you're going to go face-to-face with Batista. Now, I think it takes a lot of guts to challenge a man like the Animal.
You know what I think? I think that it takes a lot of guts for a man like Batista to even bother stepping foot in the ring with a man like Mr. Kennedy. Mark Henry, he may have not been able to beat Batista, but I can. And when it's all said and done, when the match is over, when the dust has settled, that announcer will cry out to the heavens, the winner of the match, Mr. Kennedy! Kennedy.
Okay, so this is worth pointing out because it's a history-making moment. The Miz and Mr. Kennedy are in the same segment.
I thought it was The Miz, but I was like, but I kept mishearing him.
He is The Miz when he was much younger, and he was yet to properly debut as a wrestler, so they tried to give him things to do. None of them work out. The guy was just so naturally unlikable. Eventually they figured that out and managed to harness that into his strength. So anyway, The Miz, or Mike Mizanin, interviews Mr. Kennedy! Right, so do you remember Mr. Kennedy at all?
Yes, I do actually. And I remember him being a very well-liked heel by most people.
So Ken Kennedy, or Ken Anderson as he used to be known as, became easily one of the most prominent rising stars on SmackDown. He was supposed to be a detestable, boisterous, arrogant heel, but his gimmick of coming down the ring and announcing himself in the most outstanding way possible with a microphone coming down the ceiling from Green Bay, Wisconsin. How could you not like this guy? A guy with magic microphone powers and booming self-announcing voice. It's the kind of arrogant heel you love to love instead of love to hate. And unfortunately, he gets to go against Batista.
That's the match he gets to do in this pay-per-view.
This match... this match... the circumstances surrounding this match are truly unfortunate.
Please do tell.
It's backstory time. The sixth match of the night, if you count the Brian Panties, which technically it counts. The sixth match of the night was between Batista and Mr. Kennedy, etc. So now this is the match that we ended up having tonight. Now, the match that we were supposed to get instead.
Oh gosh, what were
Do you see what I mean by recurring theme? Was between Batista and Mark Henry. But Mark Henry could not compete tonight. Do you want to know why?
Elevated Enzymes.
No, he actually sustained a pretty grievous injury on his leg, so he had to be sidelined for several months. They actually showed footage in the pay-per-view of Mark Henry being carried off in an ambulance.
Yeah.
Batista has a pretty cool entrance these days. This rocking tune, fireworks explode behind him as he's making machine guns gestures.
Yeah.
Here's the backstory anyway.
Yeah.
Back in January, Batista was involved, along with Rey Mysterio, in a feud against M&M.
Right.
The then tag team champions. They won the straps from them, then they won them back, and they ended up having their final encounter in a steel cage match.
Yeah.
Batista was World Heavyweight Champion at the time, but he would not compete in single competitions because in reality he was already suffering from an injury. During this steel cage match, Mark Henry came down the ring and took a very long time in trying to break the door to the cage, which was gimmicked wrong. And then proceeded to destroy both Batista and Mysterio. Now, allegedly, in kayfabe, this caused Batista's injury. Well, that and being pummeled by him a few more times, which forced him to relinquish the title. Upon his return, several months later, both him and Mark began a feud and were booked in a match at the Great American Bash. Until Henry suffered an injury in a six-man tag team match with Finlay and Kim Booker against Batista, Mysterio and Bobby Lashley on the July 15th edition of Saturday Night's Main Event. Henry's replacement was his ally, Ken Kennedy.
Right.
So, translation, Batista did not have an opponent, the scheduled opponent, for his epic comeback that was supposed to send him into the stratosphere pretty much from the get-go, getting his revenge and his comeuppance from the much-hated rival who, in kayfabe, sidelined him with a long injury. Unfortunately, because the universe loves irony, Mark Henry gets injured while Batista returned. So, Mr. Kennedy was scheduled to replace him.
Right.
And this is where the problems arise, specifically in the way the match goes down, because on one hand, you have Batista, which is the guy that is your surefire main eventer, and you desperately need a babyface main eventer on SmackDown at this point in time, because Rey does not cut it. So, obviously, he needs to look strong before being sent right back into the main event scene and fight for the world title.
Yeah.
The problem is that with his rightful opponent out of the way, his comeback has been already partially damaged. And honestly, it is the kind of long-term damage that he will not be able to recover from. It's not anybody's fault, it's just bad luck this time. No stupid elevated enzymes in people's livers. So what to do? We need Batista to look strong for his upcoming feud in the main event. So we need him to pummel somebody, right?
Yes.
And they decide to go with Mr. Kennedy, which is another guy who had just come back from an injury of his own, by the way.
Yeah.
And was already building momentum back and was getting over with the fans because his gimmick is absolutely inexplicably likable. So, you have two guys in desperate need for momentum being put against one another at the wrongest possible time. And it's basically a no-win scenario for either of them.
Yeah, so gotta make a no-win scenario a win scenario for both, right?
Here's the problem with this. Fighting Mark Henry would have definitely given Batista that push that he needed at this point. Because, again, epic comeback, comeuppance, return as a conqueror. Instead, he gets put in the ring against a guy that fans actually like. And during this entire match, he looks like a bully, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely does look a bit too overpowering and like he's picking on a smaller guy.
To be fair, that's what made Batista likable in the first place. And one thing that I really like about Batista and makes me miss him is that he's the master of psychology. The way he acts in the ring and before the match starts, he looks like a guy who's there to just kill somebody. Righteously infuriated because he could not get his hands on his allotted target. So he's going to take his frustration out of the first guy he gets his hands on. But again, he's put against Mr. Kennedy. It is not a hated heel. He's actually a pretty popular heel. And he's going to get even more popular in the next few months, in spite of what transpires tonight. So again, you need to have Batista look strong, but you don't want to have Kennedy lose outright on pay-per-view because he's building momentum as well. Solution?
DQ!
Disqualification finish.
Disqualification finish. It's such a cop-out answer, isn't it?
Honestly, if it wasn't for that finish, this would have been the match of the night for me.
Just because it was a good old-fashioned...
It was a slobber knocker! It was a violent slobber knocker. In the very first few seconds of the bout, Batista slams Kennedy's head and he bleeds from it. Already, this early. I guess that was your Great American Bash, by the way.
Yeah,
a person's skull on the steel ladders. That's your bash for tonight?
That's definitely the bash of the night.
So, they had this bout, they brawl for a little bit, it is mostly dominated by Batista, but Kennedy, to his credit, brings the fight to him, and he looks rather heroic while doing so in a way, because he's been actually assaulted from behind while he was trying to get his microphone for the self-announcement.
Yeah.
And that was booed, by the way. Batista, the returning conquering hero everybody loved, was being booed for interrupting the Mr. Kennedy's self-introduction segment. This makes sense from a character standpoint. Again, Batista is the master of psychology in that sense.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it does it against the wrong opponent.
Yeah.
It is such a weird, sad situation, the one we're in tonight. So, eventually Batista retaliates against Mr. Kennedy and he causes a disqualification because he was blinded by rage. And then he proceeds to destroy him with 3 consecutive spine busters and his trademark Batista Bomb.
Definitely a squash match.
Not really a squash match. It was still DQ, and Mr. Kennedy did bring the fight to him. It was actually surprisingly brutal for what it ended up being at the end. And it does make Batista look fairly strong. He looks like a beast, and that's what made people like Batista in 2005.
Right.
We're in 2006. He definitely looked strong, but again, this was a match announced in the very last SmackDown before this show, and Mark Henry was out of action. So this match had no momentum behind it, it was not happening for a real reason, which means that the heat it might have had been dissipated. Sure, the crowd was relatively loud for both Batista and Kennedy, but if this match had an actual build behind it, it could have been a much more interesting affair. They will end up having a proper built feud for the Royal Rumble the following year.
Yeah.
But as far as this match is concerned, I don't think it accomplishes the goals it sets up to do. And again, the circumstances are very unfortunate.
So, really, to me, it just feels like as if the answer that basically made sense to do at the time, as, you know, it basically, they couldn't defuse either of their pushes, but they couldn't push either guy either, so...
You say that, but then they had a rematch on SmackDown and Batista won that one.
Right.
So why they couldn't do that on pay-per-view? Probably because a loss on a pay-per-view would have looked worse, would have been worse to recover from Mr. Kennedy, which, by the way, did recover splendidly. He ended up having a fantastic run throughout 2006, even feuding against The Undertaker, and also winning Money in the Bank in 2007. And then it was a complete freefall for him, due to, again, really sad and tragic circumstances.
Yeah.
He never could live up to the potential which was there, great potential that was there, that was put upon his shoulders. He was over with the fans, he was the favorite of the direction.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the universe has a sense of irony, so he was not meant to be, apparently.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's about it for this quote-unquote feud. Batista gets put back in the main event scene with relative quickness. This served its purpose, which was to make him look strong in the short run, but I think in the longest term, this ended up damaging him. This ended up damaging Batista because he will not ever be able to be as popular as he was in 2005 for the remainder of his run in the company. And the less said about his return in 2014, the better.
Yeah, let's just move on from that one.
Do you know how many great men have tried to rule the world, my king? Alexander the Great, Napoleon, Julius Caesar. When you beat Rey Mysterio, you will become king of the world!
King of the world.
That's right.
King of the world.
Say it again.
King of the world.
Right, so before we proceed in talking about the main event,
yeah,
there is a segment that we have skipped.
Yeah, I forgot about that segment. I only just remembered it now once I saw what was the last match.
Backstage, King Booker and Queen Sharmell are delightfully and fabulously and royally imagining a world in which King Booker is the king of the world. He will succeed, whereas Napoleon and Julius Caesar and Adolf Hitler, whomever was mentioned, have all failed. He will become king of the world. King of the world! And he
King of the world!
Yes, ouch. He proceeds to say that a few more times. You know, it just occurs to me Titanic would have been a much more different film if King Booker was Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm the king of the world, and you're all my loyal subjects.
Oh gosh.
Yes.
Gotta like King Booker when he gets a bit over the top there.
King Booker was by far the best thing on SmackDown in 2006. And we're about to explain to you why. Right, but before that, a bit of a backstory.
Yes. of how the whole thing came about, right?
Even better, I'm going to tell to you in what condition Booker T was before his much-needed gimmick change. In the first few months of 2006, Booker T had pretty much hit rock bottom. And I do mean rock bottom. Not The Rock's finisher, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Metaphorically speaking, after losing the US title from Chris Benoit, he would end up losing a handicap match that pitted himself and his wife against the Boogeyman at WrestleMania 22.
Oh, I remember that.
I'm the Boogeyman, and I'm coming to get ya! To be fair, he was a novelty character for sure, but the character work was outstanding. He used to eat live worms. That's dedication, my friend. I also enjoyed his makeup, fangs and all that, and an actual shaman-like stuff that emitted smoke. That's cool, I guess. This character would have been so great in the 80s or early 90s.
Yes, it would have been really cool in that era of time.
So anyway, after losing against the Boogeyman, Booker T was in a bad way. Up until he wasn't anymore. He had a Jinder Mahal moment. He went from jobber to main eventer. In the midst of spring, SmackDown held the King of the Ring tournament.
Yeah.
Which did not have a blow-off in a pay-per-view or anything. It just happened on free television. So it did not have half of the supposed prestige that this tournament used to have. This, by the way, is the first iteration of the King of the Ring tournament since 2002.
Well, a few years.
So Booker T ended up winning the tournament, defeating in the finals Bobby Lashley. So, from that point on, he started wearing a crown and a mantle, a cape. He had a scepter, a royal ring. He started to have this really fake British accent that sounded so silly. And for some reason, for some inexplicable reason, it worked. He became really over as a heel. It was genius in its own ridiculousness.
It gave the jump start that he needed.
Honestly, yeah, changing your own gimmick, the core essentials of your gimmick. So late in your wrestling years, he would retire about 2 years from now, in fact. That's something that does not happen often. But I'm glad it did, because it gave us the most memorable version of himself, that's for sure.
Not just only the about time,
which had run off his course. Now he's the king of the world. I love his claims that in order to become king of the entire planet, he needs to defeat a guy that's half his size in one-on-one combat.
Yeah.
Well, I say one-on-one in quotation marks, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, I do. I get what you mean.
Alright, so here's my notes again. The main feud heading into the Great American Bash, or, you know, the Mr. Kennedy's Heads Bash, was between Rey Mysterio and King Booker! I'll never get tired of saying it like that. For the World Heavyweight Championship! On the July 7 episode of SmackDown, Booker became the #1 contender to the World Heavyweight Championship by last eliminating William Regal and Matt Hardy in a Battle Royale. Later that night, Booker and Queen Sharmell, Booker's wife, attacked Mysterio backstage and executed a low blow to that peasant. The following week on SmackDown, Mysterio faced off against William Regal, a member of Booker's court. Booker, who was providing commentary for the match, attempted to interfere and attack Mysterio. Mysterio, however, attacked Booker and pinned Regal for the win. After the match, Mysterio executed a 619 and a seated senton on Booker. On the edition of July 21 of SmackDown, oh, by the way, SmackDown with an exclamation point, so it's SmackDown! Mysterio defeated Booker in a non-title match. Okay, so, I hate this.
Yeah.
There was a time in the company in which occasionally they would have non-title matches between people involved in an actual title match in the pay-per-view that would take place on the Sunday of the same week.
Yeah.
That's nonsense booking. Complete nonsense booking. This is the main event of your show and you're giving it away on free television. It's like you want to fail, SmackDown. Or I should say, SmackDown!
Yeah.
Anyway, so Mysterio pinned Booker after a 619 following interference from Chavo Guerrero.
Yeah.
I would like to point out that these notes of mine are really the notes found on the Wikipedia page of the show. It makes things easier if you want to do a free-form podcast of the sort.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the actual match. And by that I mean, let's get to King Booker's entrance.
The overly long introduction sequence.
Tonight, King Booker, get up, peasant! Get up! Michael, and salute royalty. He is what Tutankhamun would have been if he'd have grown to be a man. Queen Charmel is what the Queen of Sheba would be if she was in the modern age. We are so blessed to be in the presence of royalty. We are so lucky in America, in a home where we have no king, to be visited by royalty.
Oh boy. King Booker's entrance. Honestly, I never wanted it to finish. I wanted this entrance to go on all night. It was outstanding. So, King Booker and Queen Charmel enter the ring on a throne that's built atop a limousine that's been driven by a guy dressed as a medieval knight.
Yeah.
Fireworks goes off from behind said throne.
And they're all waving too.
Yes, waving like the Queen would. He's mouthing, thank you, my royal subjects, thank you. And of course, Queen Charmel yells, "All hail King Booker!" every few seconds.
I like how during the entrance, JBL actually stands up.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, "He's here! His Majesty!"
How lucky we are to be in the presence of royalty. That is by far possibly the greatest moment in JBL's career as a color commentator. He just goes on in overselling how majestic and beautiful and royal Booker is. I am a wrestling god, and I say King Booker is a deity.
Yeah. I like to imagine Michael Cole's face at that point was like looking at JBL like
you don't have to.
You
don't have to. You get to see it. JBL just stands. He takes his cowboy hat to his heart. He speaks with such reverence as if he is in the presence of the second coming of Jesus. He's so in love with King Booker. Oh my gosh, it is so good. Oh, by the way, here are my notes about it. King Booker entrance. JBL sells it like a medieval town crier in the presence of the Pope. All hail King Booker! It goes on for several minutes. It is actually longer than the Undertaker's entrance, I think. I could not tell because I was having too much fun with this egocentric, megamaniacal, fake royalty nonsense, which is what's making the character great. It was so good. Oh, by the way.
Yeah?
notable signs spotted during Booker's entrance.
All hail King Booker.
That's one of them. All hail King Booker. Also, all hail King Booker. And all hurl King Booker. Signs were a lot better back then.
Yeah, and they weren't getting confiscated.
Okay, so now for something that I truly and utterly despise.
What?
After the fun is over, Rey Mysterio enters the stage, and JBL immediately, "No! Damn it, no!" Which is a feeling that I kind of share, honestly. This is where I noticed something that I have forgotten about this particular period of time in which Mysterio was champion.
Yeah.
Tony Schimmel announces Rey Mysterio not as the World Heavyweight Champion, rather as the World Champion. They have removed heavyweight from the name of the belt.
Uh-huh.
If the booking of Mysterio was not a clear indication enough that he was never supposed to be the guy to main event anything, the fact that they ended up undermining the belt itself by not calling it Heavyweight Championship anymore pretty much confirms that they view all of this entire title reign as a joke. A joke at the expense of the fans, I might add.
Yeah.
So right before the match starts, we have a bit more of that good old-fashioned Eddie Guerrero BS thrown at our faces, with King Booker saying, "Eddie cannot help you," which just makes me roll my eyes at this point. I had to suffer through that for 6 months.
Yeah, I feel for you. I feel very sorry for Eddie Guerrero, who, that his name has to be used in such a way.
Very tasteless. It is a tasteless moment in wrestling history, and nobody's very happy about it in retrospect.
Yeah.
So the match starts, and it is slow.
Yeah.
It's a match between Booker T and Rey Mysterio. This match should have been much better than what it was.
It definitely should have felt like it should have been a bit more impactful. So to see none of that, it just felt like it was like watching another show, essentially.
Also, despite the great character work, as soon as that bell rings and the match starts, King Booker just reverts back into Booker T. He doesn't fight like King Booker, he just fights like regular old Booker T. There is really nothing new or different about his offense, or the psychology, or the way he moves, the way his physical language communicates his intentions. He's just Booker T in the match. He's King Booker when he's not wrestling, and that's a bit disappointing. I mean, there is not that flourish that you would expect from such a royally screwed up character.
Yeah, you would expect a little bit more gentlemanly sort of.
You would expect him to wrestle like William Regal, right?
Like, maybe do a bow at one point and then chop him afterwards.
He doesn't really do anything that's particularly kingly.
No, he does not.
So during this match, something weird happened between the commentators, that is.
Yeah.
For some reason that I could not possibly fathom, JBL and MAGGLE engaged in a political debate about the pros and cons of a capitalist society. And JBL calls MAGGLE a socialist.
Okay. I remember
this is not what I expect to happen in a wrestling match between a phony king gimmick guy and a masked luchador.
No, I wouldn't have expected that either, personally, when I heard it. It was like, do you guys really think little about this match that you're just going to have a political debate?
To be fair, it was inspired by Rey Mysterio, but it really went nowhere and it went on for a bit too long. And I could not think of anything else during the rest of this match. Just hearing JBL and Michael Cole having a political debate, talking about capitalism and socialism. The unfair exploitation of the working class for the benefit of the rich capitalists, which prompt JBL to call Michael a socialist. This is ridiculous. Not in a good way, but it is still funny.
Yeah, it's amusing somewhat.
Okay, so let's just cut to the chase. They go on for a bit, then Queen Sharmell interferes.
Sorry about that.
That's exactly how I reacted. Okay, so Queen Sharmell gets banned from ringside. JBL yells, "It's not fair, Michael!" Well, it's fair, it's gonna happen. Well, they might as well have been saying that.
Yeah.
So she's banned from ringside. After that, the referee gets knocked out, which is the sign of impending shenanigans.
Yes, impending shenanigans, and, you know, the most telegraphed thing comes out.
Rey Mysterio manages to hit a 619, followed infuriatingly by a frog splash, which he does all the time now.
Yeah.
But there is no one to count.
Freak out.
Which is weird because I could have sworn I actually heard somebody hitting the mat for a free count. I don't know who was doing the count, but it was not the referee. Because the referee was knocked out. The referee was Nick Patrick, by the way. He is notoriously involved with screwy finishes, infamously.
Yes.
So at this point in time, King Booker does the royal bookend, which is just his normal bookend, and goes to take a steel chair. But, who should come down the ring but Chavito? Ooh, Chavo Guerrero gets into the ring, grabs the steel chair, and without even pretending he wasn't going to, he wastes no time and hits Mysterio square in the head with a really nasty sounding chair shot.
Yeah.
He's dead.
Yeah, he's unconscious for the rest of the night.
All it takes is for King Booker to cover for the count, while Nick Patrick slowly gets back into the ring and does the slowest count in his career.
And Chavo Guerrero does the longest stare down at the ring.
Contrary to popular belief, Nick Patrick knows how to count at a different speed than normal. This, by the way, is a dig at the Starrcade 97 finish.
Yeah.
So, King Booker is your new world heavyweight, your new world champion. No heavyweights. Him and Queen Sharmell celebrate in the ring, while Michael Cole sees us off of the show. And that was the Great American Bash 2006.
More like Great American Waste of Time.
I thought you were going to go for a Great American Bash, but that's okay.
Yes, that too.
So, what did you think of this main event match?
Okay, I guess. I mean, it ended Rey Mysterio's champion run.
Yes, that was the only thing I was absolutely thankful for this pay-per-view, because otherwise it was a complete tragedy. People sidelined because of elevated enzymes in livers is not a good story for your pay-per-view, is it?
It's not.
And especially when you put this baffling notion against the very real injury that Mark Henry sustained before this show that ruined Batista's return and his long-term booking, really. It's time for best match, worst match, best guy, worst guy.
Let me see now.
This is a bit hard, I understand.
I'm just gonna go with the tag team match, just because
it's an easy choice.
It's an easy choice, and plus it's a very good opener for what it is, And there was that, like you said, that one cool spot where the guy drop kicks Paul London really hard.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go with that from process of elimination alone, really.
This might surprise you, but I'm going to go with Batista versus Mr. Kennedy.
I actually thought you would go for that one, to be honest.
Okay, so I don't think the DQ finish tarnishes this match. It tarnishes a lot of things in the long run, but in the context of this pay-per-view, it was a solid way to put over Batista as a beast, an absolute bloodthirsty maniac.
Yeah.
And to keep Mr. Kennedy relatively safe by winning this match in a very heelish way, because heels winning by DQ still counts as a pretty big victory. Because, again, they are heels.
Yeah.
I would like to praise both Batista and Kennedy's great work in this match. The psychology was spot on, in spite of this match not having any momentum, but the story that was being told during this very match was pretty good. Batista is a furious, unchecked animal who just wants someone to pummel and is very disappointed that he's not getting his allotted opponent. Kennedy is arrogant and he ticks him the wrong way.
Yeah.
So they pummel each other and they make it look good because of all the brutality in the early goings. So this was, to me, the match of the night based on psychology alone.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Which is still not saying much, to be honest.
No, it's not saying much at all.
So, worst match then? Say it with me, Punjabi Prison.
I was going to say the Brian Panties match, but okay.
Well, okay, sure, but does that even count? I mean,
No.
technically it does, but let's be honest about this. Do you really expect anything from the Brian Panties match?
No.
On the other hand, do you expect something for the much anticipated rematch between the Phenom and his latest most dangerous opponent that pinned him with one foot in this brand new shiny gimmick? Your expectations might be slightly higher than the Brian Panties match.
Yeah, I get you, where your logic's going on that one.
So, yes, to me that is the worst match, especially since the gimmick itself turned out to be atrocious and unnecessarily complicated, and the match itself was a slog that went on forever, and Undertaker was not even fighting the right guy, because, again, elevated enzymes! Did everyone in that locker room have too much to drink? Seriously. Was this happy hour? Several happy hours.
Maybe they had consecutive happy hours.
This was such a train wreck. Best guy?
Best guy? Okay, best guy. Out of all these people, there really is only one person I can think of, really.
King
Booker!
You know what?
Yes?
I'm going to go for JBL instead.
Just because he sells it.
Because he sells it so well. Not just in the opening of the match, not just in the entrance part, but also throughout the entire match. And also that political debate with MAGGLE just amuses me so much on so many levels. I cannot not give JBL best performer of the night, even though he could be very annoying at times.
Yeah.
Who was the worst? You have a lot to choose from.
There's a fair few too many to choose from in this list.
Okay, you can have ties if you want.
I mean, there's Rey Mysterio, just because, you know, the whole Eddie Guerrero push thing. It'd be a bit mean to say Big Show at this point, because of the fact, you know, what he was actually going through.
Honestly, Big Show was a trooper.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna say him, you know, just because, you know, he was actually working through some bad stuff. You know, I'm just gonna go with Mysterio based on, you know, process of elimination, because Mysterio comes off pretty bad in this show.
He typically does. So, this pay-per-view was haunted by the very almost unprecedented fact that half of its card had been changed at the last minute. 4 matches, in fact, had been completely changed because of that, 3 of which because of random elevated enzymes found in people's livers. So to me, the worst guy is Enzymes! Enzymes! You ruined this night! You ruined this show! Completely ruined this show! Almost single-handedly ruined the entire show. That is unbelievable, and I'm going to go with Enzymes. Enzymes! So, we are now putting the Great American Bash behind us. What a night.
Yes.
What a disastrous night of Punjabi prisons, political debates, and enzymes. What a spectacle for all the wrong reasons. So, the Great American Bash. Was it great?
Forgettable.
Was it a bash?
Yeah, at points it was, technically.
To the head, yes. Especially at one point.
Yes.
Was it American?
Not necessarily American, if you don't count the American flag waving in places.
Was it a duh?
It was a meh.
So it's meh, forgettable, almost American, almost bash.
Yes.
And on that high note, thank you for joining us, everybody, on this ride that we took back in 2006, which, you know, it's been 11 years from. Good lord.
I know, so long ago.
And yet, with the Great Khali being brought back and the Punjabi Prison Match also being brought back, it feels like no time has passed at all.
Yeah, especially since Great Khali doesn't look to have aged much.
Yeah, he looks like he used to in 2006. That's great for him.
That's great for him and quite bizarre for everybody else to see.
He can still climb his own prison. He can still walk.
Which is great.
Yes. So, good night, everybody. My name is Madhog, and I love to fight.
And I have been your loyal subject, Diva Akron.
And now we shall bid you adieu as we practice our British speaking skills the same way King Booker does.
Oh yes.
Bow down to King Booker, my loyal subject. Do not be peasants. I'm the king of the world.
King of the world.
And then suddenly, Enzymes from behind with a steel chair.
Oh my god.
That's not fair, Michael. He's king.
He's king of the enzymes.
Oh, shut up, you capitalist pig. Michael, you're a socialist after all. Oh gosh. Bye. I'm going. I'm out. I'm out of here.
Yeah, see ya.